The rain had been falling on the city for 3 unbroken days, a relentless, freezing downpour that washed the color out of the streets and turned the morning commute into a gray, shivering march. But Judge Marcus Vance did not notice the weather. Men with his level of insulated power rarely have to. He moved through the world in climate-controlled town cars, marble-floored courthouses, and oak-paneled chambers. The elements were something that happened to other people. He stepped out of his car at 8:15 in the morning. His confirmation hearing for the state Supreme Court was at 9. He walked with the heavy, unyielding stride that had made him famous in the courthouse, a man who stepped onto the pavement as if he owned the concrete beneath it, moving with a rigid, almost militaristic discipline that brooked no argument and allowed for no hesitation. He was the Iron Judge. He had delivered 400 consecutive maximum sentences without a flicker of emotion, operating on a philosophy of absolute accountability. And then, on the corner of 4th and Elm, reality intervened. The steel grate of a subway vent, slick with the morning's freezing rain, caught his left heel. There was a sharp, sickening snap of distressed leather and sheared wood. Marcus stumbled, a sudden and completely alien physical failure. He flailed, catching his heavy frame against a wet, cast-iron street lamp. His heart spiked. He looked down. The stacked leather heel of his $3,000 bespoke Oxford was sheared completely off, swallowed by the dark grate below, leaving him standing lopsided, 1 foot flat on the freezing pavement. He had 34 minutes until he had to walk into the highest chamber in the state. He could not walk into that room limping. A limp was a vulnerability, a crack in the armor. Marcus Vance did not do vulnerability. To show weakness in front of the cameras, the senators, and the legal adversaries waiting to tear his record apart was unthinkable. He needed a solution, immediately. He looked around the gray, rain-slicked street, his jaw tight with frustration. Half a block down, tucked below a rusted iron railing and half hidden by the driving rain, a small, faded wooden sign hung over a stairwell leading underground. Elias and Sons, shoe repair, since 1974. Marcus did not hesitate. He walked down the steep concrete steps, his gait uneven and awkward, water soaking through the shoulder of his charcoal gray suit. He pushed the heavy, weather-beaten wooden door open. The bell jingled, a thin, brassy sound that seemed startlingly loud. The shop was 12 feet by 12 feet, a subterranean bunker insulated from the storm above. It smelled of heavy beeswax, sharp rubber cement, old dust, and the deep, rich scent of raw leather. It was completely silent except for the low, steady hum of a polishing wheel in the back. Elias was sitting at his workbench under a single, bright yellow bulb. He was 82 years old, wrapped in a heavy canvas apron stained with decades of black dye and brown polish. He worked with the quiet, brutal efficiency of a man who had spent a lifetime relying entirely on himself, executing heavy, deliberate movements. He was running a piece of coarse sandpaper along the edge of a heavy work boot. He did not look up when the door opened. He did not pause his rhythm. Marcus stepped into the shop, his presence usually enough to command immediate attention. The water dripped from his suit onto the faded linoleum. He said, his voice carrying the sharp edge of a courtroom order. "I have an emergency. I need a left heel replaced. I need it done in 15 minutes. I will pay you $500 cash right now." Elias stopped sanding. He set the heavy boot down with a soft thud. He picked up a clean cotton cloth and wiped his thick, calloused hands slowly, deliberately. Then he finally looked up. His dark, warm eyes took in the soaked luxury suit, the heavy platinum watch, and the rigid, defensive posture of the man standing before him. Elias said, his voice entirely unbothered by the money or the tone. "Take it off." Marcus frowned. The lack of deference immediately annoyed him. He was used to, "Yes, Your Honor," to immediate compliance, not a quiet, unyielding command from a man in a basement. But he had no leverage. The clock was ticking. He unlaced the left shoe, slipped it off, and placed it on the worn wooden counter. He stood there, slightly off balance, his left foot in only a damp black sock resting on the cold floor. Elias stood up slowly, walked to the counter, and picked up the shoe. Before we continue, if you believe that the things we try the hardest to hide are often the loudest things about us, please like this video, subscribe to Stillwater's Stories, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that they are seen today. Elias did not look at the broken heel, not at first. He turned the shoe over, lifting it toward the yellow light. He ran his thick, permanently ink-stained thumb across the leather sole. He felt the instep, applying deep pressure. He traced the wear pattern at the ball of the foot, which was barely touched, and then focused on the deep, harsh grooves worn completely down into the outer edge of the remaining heel base. Marcus checked his watch, his impatience rising. He said, "Do you have a replacement block or not? I don't have time for a forensic inspection. Just glue a new one on. I have a very important appointment." Elias did not look at him. He pulled a pair of heavy forged iron pliers from his bench and gripped the remaining brass nails embedded in the heel block. Elias said, his voice steady over the sound of the rain hitting the high basement window. "This is French calfskin, hand-welted, oak bark tanned sole, a beautiful shoe, built for a man who knows exactly where he is going and demands that the world get out of his way." He pulled the pliers with a sudden, powerful movement. A nail came free with a sharp, protesting squeak. Elias continued, "But the man wearing it doesn't want to be where he is." Marcus stiffened. The irritation gave way to a sudden, sharp, defensive instinct. He said, "Excuse me?" Elias set the heavy pliers down on the wood. He pointed a thick, stained finger directly at the leather sole. He said, "Look here. The wear on this sole is telling a story you aren't saying out loud. It's completely asymmetrical. You are putting 80% of your body weight on your heels. You walk leaning backward. You strike the ground hard, bracing yourself against it, instead of stepping fluidly into it. You are fighting the pavement with every step." Elias looked up, his warm, ancient eyes meeting Marcus's icy blue ones. Elias said, "A man who walks on the balls of his feet is a man moving towards something. A man who walks entirely on his heels is a man pulling away. You walk like a man who is terrified of what he's going to step on, or perhaps a man who is exhausted from stepping on people." The basement went entirely quiet. The low hum of the city above seemed to vanish, leaving only the sound of the rain beating softly against the small glass window near the ceiling. Marcus stared at the old man, a cold knot forming in his stomach. For 12 years on the bench, he had been the one making the assessments. He was the one who looked down from an elevated oak-paneled desk and read the guilt, the fear, the subtle lies in the faces of the defendants standing before him. He was the reader. He was the absolute authority. He was never the book. Marcus said, his voice dropping to the cold, authoritative register he used for handing down maximum sentences. "I am paying you for rubber and glue. I am not paying you for amateur psychology. Fix the shoe. Now." Elias did not flinch. His expression did not change. He picked up a razor-sharp skiving knife and, with the precision of a surgeon, smoothly sliced away the remaining ruined leather of the broken heel, stripping it down to the raw foundation. Elias said, 25 years ago, a young man came into this exact shop. Marcus looked at his watch again, but his eyes didn't register the time. Elias did not look up from his work. He opened a tin of thick, industrial cement and applied a heavy layer to the leather. The sharp, volatile chemical smell quickly filled the small space. Elias said, "It was pouring rain that day, too." The young man brought in a pair of cheap, off-the-rack Bostonians. They were poorly made, but they were all he had. The soles were completely worn through the center, holes right in the middle of the foot. Do you know how you get holes right in the middle of a leather sole? Marcus did not speak. He felt the air in the small room growing impossibly thick, pressing in on him. Elias said, "You get them by walking fast, by leaning entirely forward, by rushing toward the fight." That young man was a public defender. He looked like he hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a week. He didn't have $50 to fix the shoes. But he stood right where you are standing, and he told me he needed them fixed because he was representing a 19-year-old kid who had stolen bread for his little sister. He said he refused to walk into a courtroom looking like a man who couldn't defend himself, let alone defend someone else who had nothing. Elias picked up a fresh, heavy block of dense black rubber. He held it briefly over a small blue alcohol flame to activate the glue, the heat causing the chemicals to bond. Elias said, "I fixed those shoes for free. I told him he could owe me. I did it because I liked the way that boy walked. He walked like he carried the weight of the world, but he believed his shoulders were broad enough to bear it. He walked like he believed the world could actually be saved." Elias pressed the new rubber heel onto the shoe. He placed the shoe upside down on a heavy cast iron anvil. He picked up a dense, leather-wrapped hammer and struck the heel 3 times with tremendous, measured force. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed in the tiny, concrete-walled shop like a heavy wooden gavel striking a sounding block. Elias took the shoe to the buffer wheel. He flipped the switch. The low hum returned, vibrating through the floorboards. He polished the edges, pressing the rubber against the spinning canvas wheel until the new heel blended seamlessly into the old leather, leaving no trace of the break. Then he turned off the machine. The silence rushed back in. He brought the shoe to the counter. He set it down gently in front of Marcus. Elias said, "Your bone structure hasn't changed, Mr. Vance. The break in the instep, the width of the arch, it is exactly the same as it was 25 years ago. But the weight is entirely different. The young man who wore holes in the center of his soles, he wanted to catch people before they fell into the abyss. The man wearing these $3,000 shoes, he just wants to crush them." Marcus stood perfectly still in his one sock. He looked at the flawlessly repaired shoe. He looked at the old, stained hands resting on the counter. And then he looked at Elias. The flawless armor of the Iron Judge, the impenetrable mask of a man who had not allowed himself to blink, to doubt, or to feel mercy in over a decade, cracked. It was just a hairline fracture, but in the silence of that basement, it cracked wide open. He remembered the 19-year-old kid. He remembered the smell of that cheap suit he used to wear. He remembered the frantic, desperate energy of the cheap Bostonians, the feeling of leaning forward into a hostile courtroom, believing that the law was meant to be a shield for the broken, not just a heavy sword for the powerful. He remembered the exact year, the exact case, where the weight had simply become too heavy, and he had decided it was easier to stop feeling. It was so much easier to just swing the hammer, to lean back, to protect himself. Marcus slowly reached into his interior coat pocket. His hand trembled just a fraction of an inch. He pulled out 5 crisp $100 bills. He placed them on the wooden counter, sliding them toward the cobbler. Elias looked at the money. His expression remained entirely neutral. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he slid 4 of the bills back across the counter, stopping just in front of Marcus. Elias said quietly, "A heel is $100. I told you that 25 years ago. I only charge for the rubber, Judge. I don't charge for the truth." Marcus looked at the $400 sitting on the worn wood. Slowly, he reached out and picked it up. He put the money back in his pocket. He slipped his left foot into the repaired shoe. He tied the waxed laces, pulling them tight. He stood up. He distributed his weight. The shoe held perfectly. He looked at Elias. The anger was entirely gone, replaced by something that looked remarkably like grief, and then a profound clarity. He said, his voice entirely stripped of its courtroom armor, "Thank you, Elias." Elias turned around, walking slowly back to his workbench. He picked up his piece of coarse sandpaper. He said, without looking back, "Watch your step, Your Honor. The ground is very slippery today." Marcus walked up the steep concrete stairs. He pushed the heavy iron door open and stepped back out into the freezing rain, letting the cold water hit his face. At 9:15, Judge Marcus Vance walked into the grand wood-paneled chamber for the appellate confirmation hearing. The room was packed to capacity. Senators, flashing cameras, and a horde of reporters were waiting for the infamous Iron Judge to take the stand and deliver his rigid defense of maximum sentencing. Marcus walked to the heavy mahogany podium at the center of the room. The cameras flashed, catching the rain still glistening on his shoulders. The reporters in the front row noted, later in their columns, that he looked inexplicably different. They could not pinpoint exactly what it was. His suit was the same immaculate charcoal. His expression was serious and unyielding. But as he stood at the podium, looking out over the sea of faces, he did not lean back on his heels. He did not brace himself against the room as if preparing for an attack. He shifted his weight. He leaned forward, on the balls of his feet, ready for the first time in a decade to catch something.